So ultimately, the problem that we're solving at Endorsed, we're aiming very high. It's unemployment, global unemployment. We believe that if we can leverage the intelligence of AI and build way better matching systems and cultivate really good networks of great people, that we can be on the forefront of reducing global unemployment, helping the right people get the right roles, and helping build teams.
Hi guys, welcome into MPods. We're here with Jake Schwartz, and we're super excited about this interview, so let's just jump right in. So Jake, could you give us a brief introduction of who you are and what you do at Endorsed?
Yeah, for sure. And first of all, thanks for having me, guys. Yeah, great to be here and get a chance to chat with you on the show. Yeah, a little bit about myself. So my background, I studied computer science and physics at the Ohio State University. No, I'm just kidding. I went to Michigan and absolutely loved it there. And yeah, went to all the games and really look back at my time at UMich as being really fond of it, and it was amazing experiences there. Studying computer science and physics gave me opportunities to learn about problem solving and building and really scratch those itches. Prior to that, although I was building apps and websites since I was a kid, I got my start building websites when I was 8 years old and been doing it ever since. So I love tinkering, I love building, I love learning, and University of Michigan just accelerated that and opened a lot of doors for me in that regard. So yeah, that's like my educational background. Did a couple startups there, so there's a lot of entrepreneurship energy in Ann Arbor in particular, and caught the bug there, and with friends we started a couple companies, and after I graduated I ended up getting an offer to go to my dream job, which was at Apple, and so spent a couple of years at Apple, and that was amazing. Happy to get into that if you want, and then left Apple to keep doing startups going forward on that journey. But yeah, and then inspiration behind Endorsed. When I left Apple, I started a company with a friend, and we actually built a social networking app. We were on that for a couple of years, and then we got acquired by a company called Life360. I'm not sure if you've heard of it.
Everybody you know has it.
Yes. You're welcome, or should I say, I'm sorry. But yeah, that was a really interesting opportunity to work there. So I joined through that acquisition in 2015 and ended up getting an opportunity to build much of the app and a lot of the team as the company grew and scaled throughout the years. So I did a lot of recruiting and hiring there and ended up kind of building a brand for myself as like the team builder, and learned the hard way, like some of the lessons of, how hiring can be really challenging and hard and difficult. And also on the other hand, had some really amazing kind of magic moments, bringing incredible people onto the team and incredibly talented people. And so I wanted to bring that to other people with Endorsed. And so that's how we got started. I teamed up with my co-founder. He called me up one day and he was like, hey, I need a co-founder for this project I'm working on. Do you want to work with me on it? And I realized it was a great opportunity for me to really build on that team building passion that I have and turn that into a product and launch that to the market and enable people to hire better and faster. So that's what we're doing at Endorsed.
That's so fascinating. You were going to say.
Yeah, that is fascinating. One question follow-up for you is that at Endorsed, I know that it's an AI recruiting assistant, and then so what can you explain to our audience? What type of problem are you specifically aiming to solve? And because you mentioned about the challenges you observed while you at your previous company and with hiring, so maybe expanding on that would be helpful.
Yeah, so ultimately the problem that we're solving at Endorsed, we're aiming very high. It's unemployment, global unemployment. We believe that if we can leverage the intelligence of AI and build way better matching systems and cultivate really good networks of great people, that we can be on the forefront of reducing global unemployment, helping the right people get the right roles, and helping build teams. So that's our long-term vision. Right now, we're solving that with a few key products in the market. Building AI agents to help teams hire better and faster and find diamonds in the rough for people that apply. So really using like the latest LLM models and the intelligence thereof to dig deeper into somebody's experience, look at not necessarily what they wrote on the resume or what keywords they may have remembered or forgotten, but whether they may have the skills or adaptability to come and be successful in the team. So we have a few products on the market aimed specifically at companies that are hiring and looking to build teams and looking to seek the right talent to join those teams. So that's a little bit of a problem that we're solving right now. How are we different? Why can't you just go on LinkedIn and do some searches that way? Or, I don't know, post a job posting on a light post on the street. Imagine if LinkedIn were built in 2025 using generative AI, semantic search, and natural language. That's where we are. We bring all those things to our product and let you just search really faceted angles of talent and really try to optimize that matchmaking. For example, customers come to Endorsed and they'll try to search for people that they're used to keywords, like doing a bunch of Boolean searches, but on our platform, they can actually search for people that have been, let's say, promoted in a role, showcasing like ability to grow, or maybe came from a non-standard background, but may have the skills to bring to the table here and be successful in this role. And they can literally just search for that, quote unquote, in our system, and then we'll bring that intelligence layer to them and help them make those hires.
Yeah, and there's another follow-up question on that. So is there a specific type of role or position, maybe like in the software developer vertical, or is there a specific type, or could it be in any sort of position or role that you're partnering with enterprises to do?
Yeah, are there specific areas or domains where we're aiming first or where our product works best? We found that in high skill, like specialized roles, we create a lot of value there. Imagine going to a recruiter and saying, hey, I'm searching for a cell biologist to help do cancer research for my new startup. And the recruiter might say, okay, sweet, let me get started on that, but wait, I don't have a PhD in microbiology. You do. You know who you're looking for, I don't, but it's my job to fill that role. We actually had a company come to Endorsed exactly with this problem, and they're like a Y Combinator Series A funded startup doing like molecular biology and cancer research. I didn't know what the heck they were searching for, but they were getting really great results. At least they told us this. And I was like, sweet, I'll take your word for it. And I was looking at these candidates' resumes, and it was ultra dense with like publication after publication in a domain that I have no experience in, but they were able to make some really amazing matches and ultimately hires through searching in our platform. So are there specific domains where we work better? I would say where there's that like experience delta, or like with highly specialized roles, definitely provide a lot of value there.
Yeah, and that's really exciting what you're doing at Endorsed right now. And there's so much value. And if you could, for just a moment, just take us back to your experience, wind back the clock to when you were at Michigan and the critical experiences that you had that were crucial in your success and what you experienced there. I'm curious.
So I was at Michigan and I originally started studying physics, and I didn't think I needed to study computer science because I was already like building websites for people, like making some money doing it, not a lot, but I was like, yeah, I'll probably do this as my job, and what could a degree give me or teach me that I don't already have? I was a fairly arrogant young guy at the time, but I took a couple computer science classes and I was like, dang, this is hard. There's a lot to learn here. And I think just that, the education, but also that opened up the door for a lot of like entrepreneurship opportunities. I don't know if the Center for Entrepreneurship is around.
Yeah, it's still around.
Oh,
yeah.
Sweet.
Yeah, we actually interviewed some people from CFE, and they were very active. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I should reach back out. They played a huge part, I think, in kind of the launch pad of some of my initial entrepreneurship journey. I'll give you an example. I think it was junior year. My buddy came to me and I was working in the Duderstadt Center, like doing kind of website development for the engineering college. And it was like late night, it was like probably Friday, like midnight or something. And he's like, hey, can I hang out? And he was like, there's an entrepreneurship trip that they're scheduling to the Bay Area, to Silicon Valley. We need to just pitch something. Let's come up with something to pitch to them and hopefully we'll get accepted. So we spent all night brainstorming. We got a couple other friends and we were thinking, okay, what startup do we want to build right now? And we ended up making a pitch. That got accepted. The CFE gave us this opportunity to fly 30 students out here to Silicon Valley and arrange for a bunch of tours of really great companies. And that was just amazing because we got a chance to ask a bunch of questions, make these connections, see what it's really like. And we did that twice in a row. And I think that was a really great experience for me, for example.
Yeah, so those late nights in the dude are paying off then.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of creativity there, but also a lot of late night study sessions for sure.
Yeah. So did you have any mentors at the university that stand out in your mind, or people that you talked to or that served that role?
A lot of professors I look back to, and I really want to keep in touch with them and go back and say, hey, that one question you asked me, or that one time you said I got something completely wrong, sat down with me for some extra time, was really helpful for me. I think of, just to name a couple, Professor Elliot Soloway, I don't know if he's still around in the computer science program, but really unorthodox, creative, entrepreneurship-minded individual. Really encouraged just going against the grain. If you have a passion, go build it. And gave us those opportunities in class to build projects and then follow up with the academics of that. So that was huge. And I think a lot of the professors in the program there, engineering college, they brought in a lot of great talent. Just to name a couple others, Professor Halderman, security professor, and he basically just a hacker. And a lot of the computer security class was around how to break into systems, but also how to defend that and learn from that from like a scientific perspective. That was super cool and helped me think about things a little bit more creatively as well, and how to build robust systems.
And yeah, if we could just go on that for a brief second. So what were you like back then? Were you in any clubs, or so what were you like, and also what clubs were you in, or what activities did you do outside?
Oh, I was and still am a huge nerd.
Okay.
Working all the time, studying all the time. I think what do they say? Eat, sleep, party, pick two. Most of the time I didn't get a lot of sleep or didn't go out a lot, but I was working and studying quite a lot. Couldn't say no to opportunities to build apps and websites, so I had a lot of kind of projects going on, and I think a few of those actually helped me land the internship at Apple. They said, "Oh wow, you've worked on this and this. That's really interesting. Why don't you get on the phone with us?" So I think having like hobby projects and side projects, not just like technical or engineering related, but in whatever your field is, I think has been really helpful in getting my foot in the door with a lot of these companies. Clubs that I was a part of, let's see, senior year, once I got my job offer to go to Apple, I relaxed a little bit more, I would say, and the pressure alleviated quite a bit. I was like, okay, sweet. I can take some classes that I might have been putting off, that I might just find interesting, botany, astronomy, like why would you need those for an engineering job? But then I joined a couple clubs that were just great ways to meet people. Room ball, started playing, and made some amazing friends from that, and that was super fun. But I think the clubs are a great way to stay connected. But also, I was really focused on work and school and trying to be successful there.
Yeah, definitely. Just because you mentioned a lot about Apple and it's your dream company, and you now are at Endorsed and out of Apple, just curious, does that experience working at a major company, and I know that you also helped with develop some of the features or apps in Mac OS system, and do you think that experience helped you in like leveraging that insights into creating Endorsed in any way, or setting a vision for the startup in any way?
Yeah, I learned a lot of really great things at Apple. First of all, the level of talent there is super, super high. Like the people that I worked with, even just having lunchtime conversations that I could barely keep up with, I'm like, damn, these people are smart. I don't know how I made it through the door there. But learning a lot from the incredibly intelligent people there was very helpful to get my coding and engineering career off the ground. In terms of like team leadership, company leadership, startup leadership, I would say one of the biggest main areas that I picked up from being at Apple was how to ship large software projects. You can probably fact check this. I have no idea whether it's true or not, but I have a hunch that Mac OS is probably one of the biggest software projects in the world. There's tens of thousands of people working on it directly, either contributing code directly, QA, software delivery, marketing. How do you coordinate this many people in different buildings, time zones, and countries to ship something on time every year without fail? So Apple's shipped Mac OS every year since it came out in 2001 or something, and are consistently pushing the boundaries with user experience, with creating productive applications and for the Mac. And so they're consistently in a leadership position with what I would say is the world's largest software project, or one of them. And from an organization and project management standpoint, like how do you do that? And so being on the inside and seeing firsthand how that all works, being forced to make super pragmatic decisions about what to ship and what not to ship, and really having that bring the business sense to those decisions, I think has been very beneficial as well. And I saw a lot of that at Life360 and now Endorsed, how to ship effective and impactful software projects and make forward-moving progress while at the same time upholding business goals and keeping to a schedule. I think that's a pretty big skill.
Okay, so you just graduated with a degree in computer science and physics, and you got the offer from Apple, and so you go out to California to start at Apple, and then so you're moving to California for the first time, and then, or you did your internship there before, and then what did that feel like, and what did you work on at Apple right out of after you graduated?
I was so pumped to be there.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was a dream job. I think my dad bought me a programming book on how to write HTML when I was like 10 or something. And it's encouraging, like we had always talked about Apple as one of the best companies. And so it was super pumped. And I think I had a really incredible onboarding experience there. And so when I think back to like things that made me successful later in my career and things I did well or could learn from, one of the things that my team at Apple did really was pair me up with a mentor. They actually called it an iBuddy. At the time, the I was the prefix of iPhone and everything. But a mentor, and we shared an office. And I don't know what he was told, but he was extremely patient with me, and it was almost his responsibility to make sure that I was successful in my first few weeks and months on the team. So I think having an incredible first onboarding experience when joining a team or bringing a new hire onto the team is really important. And there's actually research that shows that new hires' first few months on the job, how well are they onboarded correlates downstream to how successful they are later on in the company, to retention, promotion likelihood, all these things. I would say like that worked really well. One thing that I would learn from and take with me there is I don't know how well we hired on that team. I remember we did interview after interview, and the candidates that we were getting from the recruiting department weren't that great. We were saying, yeah, this person's great, but they're not perfect for this one role, a very specific role we're seeking. And then looking back on it, again, that's a big company. The recruiting department was in another building 2 streets away. We probably interfaced with them a little bit, maybe like an hour call a week or something. But if we could do the recruiting ourselves and have the tools and capabilities to do that, and we knew exactly what we were looking for, we would have much better outcomes. We get a chance to talk to the candidates directly versus going through a third party. So I think the recruiting team brings a lot of value, but what I want to try to do with Endorsed is bring those magic hiring moments directly to people.
Okay.
Hiring.
Yeah, and yeah, I've heard that recruiting is the most important job function or just function in any company. And okay, but so you're at Apple, and then the teams aren't working out, and I'm curious what, or like recruiting, the recruiting side is, and then I'm curious, so you did a startup called Ask Us,
Oh, yeah.
Is that correct? Where is that in the timeline from
Sure.
Apple to Life 360 to Endorsed?
So I did that before Apple. I did that. A friend of mine, we teamed up on Ask Us, which was a political dialogue platform, while at Michigan, actually. So we built that while we were at the Tech Brewery, which is off Plymouth, I think, an incubator for tech startups. And I had to make a tough decision to either stick with that startup or go work at my dream job at Apple, and ended up going to go to work at Apple. When I was at Apple, I was there for a couple of years and learning a lot. Although I still had that startup itch. I did a couple startups at Michigan, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and he said, yeah, you should meet up with one of my other friends. He's got a funded startup already. He's looking for a co-founder to do a second one. So that's when I actually left to build a social networking app. And I made the tough decision to part ways with Apple after a couple of years there and jump back into the startup ecosystem. I just was addicted, and so I've always been in startups.
What did that decision look like? The difficult decision to leave Apple because you're in this secure job, Apple pays well, and there's a lot of security, and you've got these genius people that you're working with, and you make the decision to leave. What goes into that?
Yeah, first of all, nothing against Apple. I would absolutely go back for the right role. I really cherished my time there and learned a lot. But as I said, I've got that startup itch, and I just love to build things. I love to have a bigger impact. At a large organization, you're working on some narrow slice of the problem, and I was just getting a little bit antsy. I was like, I think we could do so much better here and there, and at the same time, feeling the startup energy of Silicon Valley and the ecosystem here. It wasn't long before I was thinking, okay, what app can I build right now and take that plunge? I can tell you it wasn't easy. I'm a bit of a risk taker, so I can have a tendency to dive in sometimes. And there were people in my life saying, no, don't do this. Family members would say, what are you doing? You're crazy. You just got this job. But that ended up being a fantastic career decision, because that startup that we started ended up getting acquired and just after a couple of years, and landed being at Life 360, another fantastic role. So I think that risk also paid off, and learned a lot from that as well. But yeah, I can say it's never an easy decision, like stable, decent paying job versus high instability, high risk. It's not for everybody. I love the startup energy, the startup atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely. Just maybe changing the gears a little, just talking about AI, the application of AI in recruiting, which is what you're doing right now. A lot, like when we are talking about, for example, like using AI to do resume screening, initial calls, there seems to be some fear surrounding that among candidates, like they rather want a human HR to do. So because in your last episode with another podcast, I heard that you wanted to do like future-oriented, future-assumed type of thinking. So when you think about the vision of future recruiting, what do you think that would be, especially considering there are all kinds of talents out there, and how does the AI apply to getting the right person to the right role?
Yeah, so a couple things in there. I think you mentioned there's some kind of concern and apprehension from the side of applying to jobs. Hey, what's the AI really doing here? And then your other question was the kind of future of recruiting and how does that look like? Yeah, the tools are advancing quite quickly. What we're trying to do is make sure that we're surfacing unbiased facts to the decision makers and trying to identify diamonds in the rough to the hiring managers. And so we've actually seen some pretty good results here where they're able to make better hires faster that maybe didn't necessarily say the right things on the resume, but have applicable experience from other domains. And those people end up being very successful on the teams. So in terms of creating opportunities for people, that's really one of our driving forces. Is it shouldn't matter what you type on your resume or like what keywords you remembered or forgot. It should really matter like what you want to do, where your passions are, and where your skills and experience are. So I would say making AI that is unbiased, objective, and ensuring that humans are in control no matter what, making the decisions, those are kind of some of our principles by which we build and incorporate artificial intelligence into our platform. And I think that last one is super important. AI agents, the agent phrase means it's a thing that does things, that takes action on behalf of you. It's really tempting for us to build like an automatic recruiter and like just automate that thing, that domain. But to me, that's taking out some of the most important elements of the human equation from the picture. So we're still giving those decisions to the people and ensuring that they're still in the loop no matter what. Like a pilot flying a plane. Those Airbuses and the Boeing planes have, I don't know about nowadays, but have pretty good autopilot, and they take off, they land. Pilot can probably fall asleep and you'll get to your destination safely. But they still put a pilot there, and they're still really trained and have tremendous experience. And you wouldn't board that plane unless you trusted somebody in that cockpit and there was like a human in that cockpit. So I think there's a few things there. Having the human decision maker is key, but also building that trust with the people in the plane or job seekers or whomever they may be, that if something goes wrong, ultimately there's a person responsible here. That really helps build trust with the market as well.
And I don't think we got to the experiences that led to Endorsed. And what were some of the like hiring stories that you had that led to you creating this and solving this problem?
So my very first hire that I had the opportunity to make, I was an engineer at the time working on the Life360 app, and given an opportunity to basically hire my counterpart. I was working on the iPhone app, and we have an Android app as well. And I said, hey, why don't you hire an Android engineer working on this particular team that you're on, and let's have them report to you. And I was like, okay, never done this before, but let's try it. And we had a recruiting team, and we were getting some candidates here and there, and a couple interviews, and I was like, yeah, this is probably going well, I think. But one of the executives came up to me one day, a chief product officer, and I'll never forget this. He said, hey Jake, what are you doing, man? This thing is so slow. You have an opportunity to hire on your team, to build your team's incredibly important, working on these huge initiatives, and this is your hire. You have to really go after it. And it was, at the time, it was like a strong admonishment. I was like, dang, I don't know if that hurts, but holy cow. But really, in retrospect, he lit a fire under my butt and caused me to really think about hiring and recruiting way differently. It is my responsibility, if I'm hiring for my team ultimately, to make sure that role is filled quickly, efficiently, and with the best person possible. Not somebody else that I've outsourced, outsourced a recruiter hire. And we ended up filling that role with a great person. But what I did is after that moment, I made it my full-time job. I cleared my calendar, my schedule, all my tasks, and just made it my job to do hiring. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I'll do some Google searches, call some people, I'll do hiring tomorrow. I'll go to career fairs, spend my time that day, my activities, my calories, like bringing people in to interview and like really crafting our messaging to do. And so what we're really trying to do is bring tools to people directly to make those, or even recruiters as well, to bring those magic moments for hiring so that they can be effective and efficient there.
Yeah, that's really great. In that your mission, as you said at the start, is you're a team builder, is your identity, and also a risk taker as well. And then you're, like you said, the large goal of trying to combat unemployment. And how are you thinking of dissecting that problem into smaller pieces that you can attack? How do you view about taking this giant problem of unemployment and taking it down to something that you can actually do?
It is a fairly ambitious goal, right? Yeah, alleviating global unemployment. So breaking any hard problem down into smaller, achievable problems or milestones. There's a marketplace challenge there, how to create an ultra-liquid community of opportunities, jobs, and tasks that need to be done, and a network of people that have the skills, the right skills to do those. So I'm not here to reinvent like a LinkedIn or something like that, but what we are trying to do is cultivate that community of strong, talented people on a platform and build the most effective, most liquid matching machinery to make those connections. And so there's a lot of inefficiencies right now built into the system. If you've interviewed for companies, maybe they don't call you back when they said they would, or maybe your resume goes into a black hole and you don't know what's happening. Or on their side, maybe they're just too busy and overwhelmed and they need people to help, but they can't find the time to find those people, which is a good problem to have. They're growing, scaling, need additional people on the team. And by resolving some of those inefficiencies in the matchmaking, using the highest tech tools that are out there, we view this as an opportunity to really make a dent in global unemployment at scale.
Yeah, definitely. And then another thing that we didn't get to talk to about AI is that there's a lot of excitement and uncertainty surrounding the topic of AI, and we're just curious to learn more. What are some of the surprising applications of AI that you encountered so far? Can you give a couple examples?
Yeah, you guys are probably using AI for a lot of things.
Yeah.
Surprising applications. So I think one thing that I've been using LLMs in particular for quite a bit is writing code. So on our team, we produce a lot of software very quickly, but you don't want to just let the AI kind of run forward unsupervised with a super long leash and do things without the human in the loop. So while code writing, I wouldn't say super surprising, you've probably heard of this. I would say the discovery that we've made that makes it much more effective is when you have the AI prompt you or ask you for questions. I think that's been a key unlock for, I think in any application of LLMs, for making the responses like 3 times better. So typically what I'll do in my prompts, like whatever I'm doing, either business planning, writing code, talking to customers, I'll formulate the context, ask a question, but then also say, ask me 3 clarifying questions before you proceed, enter. And then when you have the AI ask you for questions instead of the other way around, then you don't know what gaps it has, and it's like reasoning or intelligence or training, and it'll surface those gaps. You can fill them in with context, and then the responses that you get are very often going to be much more effective. So I think like having the AI ask you questions is probably a surprising unlock that I'm seeing a lot in the industry as well.
And then, going off of that question, like there's so much excitement and there's so much, one could call it hype around like artificial intelligence, and I'm sure you must be a part of so many conversations about artificial intelligence, and I know that's what everyone's talking about now. So what do you see that people are getting most like misunderstanding or most often about artificial intelligence?
Yeah, some common misunderstandings with AI. And I will tell you, I'm not a trained like machine learning scientist or AI researcher. I just read a lot and use a lot of these systems in product building and talk to a lot of people in the industry. I think one misconception that I hear a lot is that AI has like intelligence, has a personality. At the end of the day, if you understand how LLMs work, they're simply token predictors. It's just really good autocomplete. Like on your phone when you say hello and it's like, how are you? And you tap that, how are you? They're just like, that times 10,000, just incredibly intelligent autocomplete for the next word in a sentence. And that's all they are, right? It's not scary. If you peel back the onion, it's okay. It's just like a lot of matrix math and how to pick the right word based on meaning. But where people have taken that and applied it is, there's a lot of applications. If you convert word prediction to other things like code prediction or like commands or actions when you think about like robots and taking action in the real world. So I'm not saying language prediction is not powerful. I'm just saying it's helpful to think of LLMs not as like some all-knowing oracle that always has answers, but instead as something that's read the whole internet and can probably predict the next word pretty well. And I think that helps me as a builder understand the limitations and capabilities of AI and LLMs too.
That it doesn't have its own personality. It's not like people tend to anthropomorphize objects, and
it's not a he or her or they. That said, there's a lot of research into what is the personality, or let's say perceived personality of LLMs. I think Anthropic is famous for having a team around what is the personality of Claude. And you can see it when you work with Claude versus ChatGPT, for example. So yeah, this one feels more human. I feel like I'm being talked down to less, and it's more approachable. Those qualities are really important, but at the end of the day, they're just weights in like some matrix somewhere that people have tweaked.
Yeah, and then going off of like changing topics a little bit back to like students and the advice that you have for students and at the university. What would you say to some either computer science or physics student, or maybe just students in general, what you would say to them for advice or things you've learned?
Yeah, I would say keep trying things, keep learning. One thing that comes to mind is when I was going through school and had algebra class and calculus class, I had teachers that wouldn't let us use calculators for certain things. You have to understand the basics, the foundations, build those muscles, and then of course you'll use calculators. But I would say a lot more of my experience is in using calculators than doing long division on paper. So I think using high-tech tools, bringing those to your work, your studies, at least understanding how they're used, maybe cheating on the test here and there with high-tech tools, let's say AI. I think that brings a couple things. That brings like skill with AI technologies, that brings adaptability and able to learn and bring on new skills, which is in itself a skill. Yeah, I'm not saying necessarily like use ChatGPT to do all your homework, but build the muscles, learn how to do the writing, solve the math yourself, but don't ignore that there's really powerful tools that will help you as well. And maybe one skill, for example, is like AI agents. If I was in school right now and I had a free weekend where I didn't get invited to some fun parties or something, or wanted to like scratch some creativity itch, I might be thinking, okay, what are some problems that I have personally that I could just start a new project and use an AI agent to solve? And maybe I don't build the next $1 million business, but what would I do is start to do the right research, start to learn some of these interesting technologies, learn the capabilities, see where it's going, and get some of that head start.
Yeah. Another thing for students is that, because a lot of us, we are graduating this year, a lot of our audiences are also like job searching policy. And I know like you worked a lot in hiring and as a team builder, and from that perspective, like what would you say to students who are like looking for jobs, maybe like working on building their resumes, like their experiences in this automated world?
Yeah, and how can you stand out among other people in the crowd? And I think a few things. So one of them, I mentioned this, like hobby projects and side projects. If your experience is the same as the student next to you because you've gone through the same classes and done the same projects, I think Michigan in particular sets you up for success because those projects are challenging and the classes are really good. But one way that you can differentiate yourself is by taking on something additional, maybe some extracurricular club, go build something, solve a problem, whatever it may be in your domain. I don't necessarily want to bias towards engineering or software, but if there's something that you can do that is both something that you're passionate about and aligns with your career direction on the side, I think that can help you stand out quite a bit because you can speak to it very well in interviews. You're like, yeah, I'm super passionate about this, let me talk about it. Yeah, you'll stand out on paper a little bit more. So I think that's big. I really enjoyed hackathons. I think there's probably a lot of them on campus, and as just something that's fun. It's just, yeah, let's grab a few friends and be like, you got an idea or want to build this idea? Let's go. And then you can leverage that in the career search and say, hey, look, I built this, I explored the market here, you guys are in this area too, want to talk about it. And that, I think hackathons in particular, it's a wonderful, highly creative environment to learn a new skill, make new connections, and showcase a talent that you can then bring to the job market.
Okay, and Yeah, that's, I think, yeah, working on, because you did that, like working on projects like that you can showcase and that actually make an impact. And I was just thinking about this okay, so I've got a roommate who they did their internship at Meta, and they're thinking of like doing the full-time job, and they also have a startup, and they're trying to decide, hey, should I go to this big company where there's a job, or should I like work on my startup here? And they're wondering which like should I do? And just for them specifically, I'm asking for them, and there also might be some other people in their same shoes. How should they go about thinking about making that decision again?
Yeah. Yeah, so a crossroads there. An opportunity at a big company like Meta, again, super stable, probably makes your parents really proud, at least in my experience I would have, versus a startup, which is scary, unknown, high risk, potentially higher reward, definitely higher variability. And how do you make that decision? Can you do both is a question that I would ask. So I think of my time at Apple right after university as my grad school. Spent 2 years there, learned a ton, and moved on into the world. And I'm not saying you should always just go and then just leave right away after a few years, but in terms of meeting people, building your network, building skills, and learning and seeing how technology is built on the inside, that was a really accelerated way to do that. And I think I got a lot from that. At the same time, it gave me the opportunity to have a stable base to think about other things, maybe tinker with technology on the side, start a hobby project. Of course, you want to make sure you're doing so in concert with the IP laws of your employer. I should say that. But,
tricky subject. To tap dance around that.
Yeah, but I hear, whether it's Apple or Meta or whatever, like many people getting the idea or meeting a co-founder while on the job. And this is a very common story. Like at this company, we had this problem constantly, so we decided to leave and solve this problem. And that's a wonderfully stable jumping off platform to de-risk a switch into a startup. You can gather problems there, you can meet potential co-founders, you can test an idea on the side maybe and like de-risk that leap a little bit. So I definitely wouldn't say no to something like a Meta if you have or your roommate has that opportunity. I definitely wouldn't say no to jumping right away into awesome startups, but I would consider maybe leveraging them to kind of build a story.
I see. And yeah, that's okay, that I think they'd love that advice, but I don't know. And then also I'd love to talk about like some of the fun projects you had in university. I know Ask Us was one of them, but what were some of the other fun like side projects that you did?
I'm working on one right now, like I'm always tinkering on the side.
Yeah.
In university, there's definitely some. I think whenever I get like a free hour or two here and there, and I want to try out some new technology, like in this case, I was looking at image generating models, and I was like, this is pretty sweet. What can I build with that? So I built like a science fiction space battles website to generate sweet space battles using image generators. And I really just did that to like try out the technology and see what its capabilities are. How can I leverage this and maybe Endorsed? Can we bring some of this in? Or where are the limitations? And maybe we should just wait a little bit. But it's also a fun way to continue to tinker and continue to build. So that's a fun one. I think we did a lot of hackathons where we made games. And those are always fun because you get to play it yourself. Bonus points if you like it. And if other people like it, you can launch it and potentially publish something. But you also learn skills along the way. Yeah, in terms of side projects, hobby projects, I'm always tinkering.
Yeah, and okay, so I also have another question that I'd really love to get your input on. And so there's a huge scare of students going into a profession or a job or a major that they might be like, that might not be there for them, a job by the time they graduate. And like, to avoid being automated, what do you think students should study in university today?
Yeah, I think there's a narrative there that, AI is going to replace a lot of us. I don't know whether that's true or not. I can't say. I can tell you the industry is changing quickly. So without the ability to predict where we're going next year or the year after, where my head goes is adaptability. How can you build skills to just continue to stay abreast of the industry trends and continue to adapt to where the needs may be. So yeah, I try to read research papers here and there where possible and try to kind of anticipate where the industry is going. There's people that do a far better job than me and in terms of like staying on the cutting edge of AI research, but I think we're seeing AI agents continue to do economically productive work, and perhaps that proportion of economically productive work is increasing over time. So to the extent that you can leverage agents and know how to use them and use them for your own work, I think that will make you a much more productive individual. Now, when I think like much more kind of futuristically, what is the world ultimately? Is it just going to be a bunch of AWS Lambda functions doing all of our work and we're sipping by the beach, like painting all the time or something? Like, what does the world look like in 50, 100 years? I don't know. That's hard to say. But I can tell you there are some things that humans are probably meant to do and some things that we're probably not meant to do. I have a lot of friends, for example, who are accountants and who are very good at that. I don't know if we were born to do accounting. And I'm thankful that we have incredibly intelligent accountants in the world, and oh my gosh, I could not do that. But are there things that are uniquely human that we can and should be leaning into over the next century and letting maybe machines do the math for us?
So letting machines do what they're good at and humans can stick to what they're good at.
Yeah, I think connections, interpersonal connections, creativity always comes up. When applied to recruiting in the hiring case with Endorsed, where are we fitting into that picture? I want to help take a lot of the mundane things off your plate when it comes to making hires, scheduling emails, like going through a stack of 10,000 resumes, and help bring you time to do more human things, talking to people, going to events, calling up a candidate and being like, hey, how are you today? Do you want to talk? And so those like human to human connections, I think, are going to be way more valuable, way more powerful. Meanwhile, we can handle some of the more automated tasks.
Yeah, that sounds like a bright future. And so what gives you hope for the future?
Oh, a lot of things. Yeah, so I'm being here in Silicon Valley, there's a lot of people doing really cool stuff. I mentioned when we were chatting just before this that I got an opportunity to tour a space company's facility later today. Wow, that's cool, what humans are doing there and achieving there. And so I think there's a lot of growing industries that are just now in the early stages. That's one example, but you could probably name a dozen others. When I think about the workforce, it's going to be very different, but there's going to be a lot of opportunity, a lot of options. It's going to change a lot, so stay adaptive, keep reading, stay curious. But yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff coming and I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I think that'll be, really, it's so exciting what people are working on.
Yeah, definitely. Just
questions?
one last question,
Sure.
because we saw that besides being an engineer, you also take on like a lot of roles, like angel investor and then also lecturer at University of San Francisco. Just wondering, like, how are there any like transferable skills that help you excel across different roles, and how do you enjoy doing all those different kinds of jobs?
Yeah, transferable skills across different things. And yeah, you might have seen that I do kind of angel investing. I view that kind of as a hobby on the side to get an opportunity to meet talented founders and talk to companies, and also maintain visibility into what people are doing in the industry, in various industries. I would say asking the right questions has been a really good skill in that, as well as a startup founder. In building a startup, you have to ask a lot of questions and you have to ask the right questions. What problem are we solving? What problems do our customers have today? Who are our customers? What does our perfect customer look like? How can we access them? And then when you get a chance to talk to your customers, what tools are you using to solve this problem today? Is that beneficial? Are there some gaps? And being open-minded and curious about where they may lead you, which may not necessarily be different, or may not necessarily be the same as where you started. So I think curiosity, open-mindedness, asking questions, core to my being. But yeah, I bring that to a lot of the different activities I do.
Yeah, I think we get a great sense of who you are as a person, what you're working on, and I think we just want to thank you so much. You've been incredibly kind with your time today. So, Jake, we appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks so much.